will start to appear, even though we can discuss that in the next, let's say, 6 months, some new devices may appear and people will start to, let's say, or companies will start to acquire them and to set them up. But it's important to have the operators to set up the network, because without networks, any 5G device is useless.
Okay. Question to Adeel as well. Adeel, what do you think about the e-commerce market, and if at all, in the context of Pakistan market, if it has come to your eyes or if you have looked at it from Pakistan point of view as well, but in general, what are your views on the e-commerce and the whole ecosystem? I would request you to, if you have gone through a little bit of Pakistan market, to discuss a little bit from the e-commerce perspective, the Pakistan market as well.
Thank you, Jahanzeb, and thank you everybody for inviting. Really delighted to be here and share my views. In terms of the whole COVID situation and the impact on e-commerce, I think globally what we've seen of late is a huge spike in demand for some categories. And that was obvious. Like in the Western world, you would have seen the dried food categories go up, toilet paper and so on go up, which was significantly kind of spiked and people panic bought. I think going forward, these things will kind of peter out, and that would become a new normal in terms of, you know, when such a thing strikes, how much of what do we need? And companies will start planning accordingly and will have their planning systems will change, in my view. We just saw P&G post record profits, Amazon post record kind of earnings, just because of the global pandemic. When this happens again, if it does happen again, will it be the same reaction from the companies? So that is the one question that we need to think, and attach to e-commerce as well. We saw a whole host of European markets struggle with the logistics providers. So the post office is shut, the carriers didn't deliver on time, the returns were not being processed. It's a whole kind of post-transaction element of the journey broke down. So going forward, people will have to start considering what success looks like in terms of fulfilling those items, and in terms of making sure the customer experience is met accordingly. Now, in terms of Pakistan, I think it kind of highlights the fact of how far we might be, or how close we might be, in fact, to having digital payments and processing of digital payments for small and medium businesses. If your entire e-commerce industry or your small businesses, mom and dad shops, were just dependent on cash and delivery with a person on a bike going around and collecting payments, and all of a sudden the risk in that system has now been exposed, you just realize that system cannot work. And therefore it comes down to us understanding what the requirements of digital payments are in Pakistan, and then making sure the execution of that happens in a timely manner so that we're not stuck in the same situation again. That's how I would see it. And also in terms of the previous point that I mentioned, how can different technologies enable this further? To Gaby's point, like, was it, if it's 5G, if it's something else, then how can we enable the adoption of those technologies to ensure success going forward?
Right. Sure.
Yes. Hello, Jahanzeb sir, I can listen to you.
Yeah. I said, if you have any questions, please go ahead.
Yes, I have a question from Adeel, that how do you think that e-commerce pushed in COVID-19 period? What are the percentage?
So to understand your question correctly, as in what was the uplift that we saw in the COVID situation? I think
how much percent you see?
Really, I don't have the numbers specifically. I might have it for my organization, but I won't quote them. But I think if you just study, as I was mentioning previously, if you just study the earnings that Amazon has posted, the earnings that Procter & Gamble has posted, some categories spiked to such an extent that they overachieved their Q1 targets, and consequently the entire dip in the market of S&P 500, if you see, like Amazon's dip has now been recovered, and they're at their record all-time high. Similarly, PNG has, as I mentioned, has posted record profits. The other side of the argument is when people are sitting at home, what are they doing? And they're kind of adopting things like Disney, Disney Channel or Netflix and things like that. And you see those companies doing very, very well. So it's not just the e-commerce aspect that is spiking. There's a whole host of industries attached to this COVID situation that are spiking. For example, for me personally, I was stuck at home. I didn't have anything, like I didn't have a printer to access. So I bought a printer. Normally I would never ever have bought a printer, but I went ahead and bought a printer because I didn't know how long this situation might last. Similarly, I would never order, I don't know, garden plants online, but this is the first time I ordered garden plants online because I had nothing else to do. So I just, plant some flowers in my balcony. And those are the things that even from your personal experience, you realize that these things will now start to spike. And all of a sudden I realized I really don't need to go to the big supermarket to get some seeds for my plants. Like they'll just, it was there before, it's not so highlighted now even more.
Great. It means we saw a tremendous change in the e-commerce industry and a digitizing industry because of this COVID-19. So I have a small question for Gaby. So Gaby, I wanted to know, so what was the role of Qualcomm and MediaTek for the digitization for the mobility? So as per you have a good experience with them.
Absolutely, the role of these companies was crucial, because at the end of the day, everything we can say that started by the smartphone, okay, in the 2006 and so on, 2010. And the point we discovered that these companies did not only develop a chip for communications, they converted this tiny thing in a computer more powerful than several computers that we had not much years ago. So having a computer at the hand at the end of the day enabled several things that we didn't imagine that can happen. So revolutionized, as you know, the lives and the lifestyle and the way that everyone is communicating, which is not only this. We changed from this position to this position in which we were just watching and communicating with people, looking at the smartphone and touching it instead of just interacting with it only with the voice. So starting by that, the entire ecosystem changed, the industry as well, the way that we are consuming contents and consuming goods as well. So for sure, Adeel, maybe Adeel bought his plants through his smartphone rather than and the printer through his smartphone rather than buying them by the computer. So everything changed a lot, and not only at this level in the person-to-person field or the person-to-machine, also in the machine-to-machine things. At the end of the day, during the last years especially, we started, both companies, doesn't matter which one of them, both of them started to give to the devices that we have intelligence, because they were not only, let's say, sensors or devices that just won't doing one action. They were able to measure what they were doing and even to communicate the measurements and the actions that they have. And based on that, also the industry, the different kind of industries started to digitalize themselves as well. So processes, instead of being more, let's say, manual and decision driven by people, started to be more automatically done. So taking a measurement of the amount of electricity that I consume at home, instead of having a person coming and measuring and taking the measurement and taking it in a note, it was automatically sent. It does not mean that we are taking out jobs of people. We are changing the profile of the people managing those services. So maybe the people and the profile of people needed is more advanced, and having a higher profile means higher revenues and incomes for those persons. So if we think it in this way, and governments and administrations think in a way that they have to educate their people towards this kind of new new abilities that people need in order to manage the industry, I think that we will do a great advance to the society at all. And so everything is being moved and pushed forward in some extent, thanks to, I don't want to say these two companies, but the entire ecosystem that it's running about all this. So being part in my 52 years old of this revolution and being lucky enough to work in these two companies that revolutionized the way that we live today, was incredible to be first view of all this revolution.
I think
Thank you
Gaby,
so
so
much.
just to kind of reiterate Gaby's point. So every in the human civilization, whenever there was a point where some technology was being advanced or something was happening in terms of advancements of human race, there was always be this thing of, oh, there will be so many job losses, or there will be, like, take industrial revolution, take agricultural revolution, there was always this thing of automation will bring job losses. Yes, it does in the short term, but in the long term, as Gaby points out, the overall society benefits, incomes rise, people get to experience more, and overall we become richer as a society. And therefore, this is not something to be feared as such. Okay, there are short-term implications health-wise and so on, but I see kind of a lot of positive things happening going forward. And the biggest thing that I'm kind of really looking forward to is this advancement in velocity of the medical sciences and research. Because now when we have this pandemic, everybody's kind of pulling all strings to get this vaccine launched and tested. Why wasn't this urgency before for other vaccines, right? Now that we have it, I hope this will teach us a lesson to have our priorities in order and ensure that governments spend adequate amounts on medical research and equipment and things like that.
And it's also, and thanks to all this, just taking the point of the pandemic, we have already all the industry, the biomedic and the pharmacy industry collaborating. I think that for the first time, they're just taking out all the patents apart and the things, and all of them are just exchanging information in a way and collaborating in a way that never saw it. So, and also this is not only because people just raise phones and call each other, they are also exchanging the information and putting all the information together. So again, if you're talking about implications of telecom industry on the pandemic, this is one of them, because they are collaborating online, not only doing video conferences, but also exchanging information and processing information all together.
Thank you so much, Gaby and Adeel, for your perspective and for your views. And now over to you, Jahanzeb sir.
Adeel and Gaby, both of you really. But Adeel, what you're saying or suggesting is that post-pandemic, post-COVID-19, we may lose a lot of jobs, but you think there will be a lot of opportunities that will still be coming, maybe not in terms of job, but more in the freelancing market or individuals working from home or remote working, so, freelancing basically. That's one question. Another thing, if you can address at the same time, is the relevance, is the readiness. A digital world may offer a lot of opportunities, but I think it will only offer those opportunities to the nation or to the people who are ready for it, right? What about the manpower who's not ready for the digital world? Don't you think irrelevance will come in for them, and they wouldn't know what to do really? They lose a job and then they don't have a job, and if they're not digitally ready for it.
Gaby, you want to take this first? Okay, I'll go for it. Okay, so I think two parts to the question, right? So the first is, yeah, short term there will be some pain. We are seeing an economic downturn happening soon. Like it's again 2008 kind of era where we'll see some companies go bust. We'll see job losses, all of those things. That's unfortunately going to be the case for a lot of people. But yes, that will now force companies to think about expenditures. About, for example, just take travel, for example. Companies used to spend millions and like even tens of millions on their travel budgets. Now, for the last 3 months, nobody's been traveling anywhere. So the companies have survived. Like so far, most of the companies have managed remotely, right? So they'll have to start thinking about what that means in terms of their expenditures. And the companies that will evolve out of this will be stronger, more leaner, and therefore better set up for the next 10, 20 years until something next happens. So that's one. The second part of the question was around whether the people or the nations were not ready for it, how they will survive. Yes, nobody was ready for this, right? So nobody knew this was coming, and yet people are enterprising, people are thinking outside the box, and then making sure the world is running. And so far, economically, okay, we're starting to see a bit of a downturn, but we're all here, we're all doing our jobs, day jobs from home, right? So things are at least continuing in some shape or form. And then what I really believe in is that the market is the actual decision maker. So if you're not ready and the market wants something to be ready, then it just forces that action, and therefore it evolves the workforce in such a way that you end up being ready. 100 years ago, when there were no aircrafts, and then aviation kicked off, nobody knew how to do this, right? And then now we have all of this industry which might be going bust, but still have this industry with lots of trained professionals, and that just became out of a necessity. So to the point that if you're not ready for it, then what happens? I think we will have to get ready for it. There's no other way to do it.
So to add, because I'm just 100% with Adeel. So I think that in regards of course stoppage, absolutely this will represent some hit to the market. I don't know if this will be as strong and long as it was with the 2008 and this stuff, because we are just stopping and starting again from more or less the same situation that we were before. So maybe it will be shorter, but the markets will say. And in regards of readiness, I think that this is a point maybe to consider and take a learning out of that, because I think that the countries that have a better infrastructures, telecommunication infrastructures and networks infrastructures will be more prepared to the post-COVID thing, or wake up. Because for instance, let's say that I just will be give the example of Spain, which have 30 million of houses, 20-something million of houses connected via fiber, high-speed fiber, and this includes industries. This means more capabilities of, let's say, remotely working with more quality connectivity, is also consuming goods and contents that is part of the ecosystem that moves the wheels of economy as well, especially these days. And not only fixed but also mobile. The better 4G and 5G maybe infrastructures for the future will absolutely give more advantage to those countries that have these capabilities. So more than probably this also can be taken as a learning point to, I don't want to say governments, because it's also part of the investment of companies, and this also may push some of the countries to have developed better networks, because also the better networks that the country have, it is proven, and there are numbers, has a direct influence on the GDP at the end of the day. So the more gigabytes of connectivity has impacts on numbers on the GDP, and this is also a point to consider.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Shoaib?
Yes, Jahanzeb.
Any thoughts on your side?
Oh, okay. My question to the Gaby, that what are the companies doing for the 5G networks, and how 5G will transform the lifestyles?
So companies are, of course, the operators are the ones that are deploying those networks, and the companies are the suspect ones that we know in the industry, the Nokias, the Ericssons, the Huawei's, the ZTEs. Also, Samsung is involved there in networks and technology deployments in the infrastructure side, and also the devices. And the devices is not only phones; it's also, and maybe it's most important, connectivity and devices connected through 5G. So in one hand, of course, everything related to content will be, let's say, smoother in some extent, but the things related to the automotive industry is quite important. We are going toward the self-driving cars, and for this, they need networks that are capable not only of connecting fast, but also having a very, very short latencies in order to be able to manage with online and immediate actions and decisions to take directly by the machines, and also connecting the devices, the cars, one to the other, and with the environment. So for this, we need the capabilities that 5G provides to us. Also in the medical industry as well. We don't need only sensors to sense and to be able to detect different data, pieces of data and constants from people's connected. Even it's needed to have it also to take decision quite quick in order to activate whatever is needed to activate. And this is important as well. And what else I'm missing? And at the end of the day, also the capability of having millions and billions of, in fact, of devices connected everywhere to be managed them and to share the information and to distribute the information among them is something that only 5G can provide today. Even though the advance and the evolution that the IoT is doing today towards, let's say, the narrowband IoT technology and maybe also the CAT-M of LTE CAT-M has already some pieces of the 5G mobile IoT, and this at the end of the day will enable this kind of services and connectivity.
Thank you so much, Gaby. I have another question with you as well, that you are the consultant with one of the company named Senso Mobile. Senso Mobile is looking after to enter in South Asia market. So you being a consultant, how do you see the South Asia market, and what are the advantages, what are the challenges, and what are the opportunities do you see in South Asia market, especially in Pakistan?
I see this as a big opportunity to South Asia market at the end of the day. Maybe not only, and I will look for the European side of it. Okay, at the end of the day, we saw and we are experiencing some kind of phenomena in regards of the Chinese production and Chinese manufacturing and the dependence on that. So something that we are seeing together with Mr. Harun from Sanso and coming into the European market and in Spain in particular, and this is what we are helping, and the way that we are helping Sanso Mobile with Arcom Consulting. We see that there is a good acceptance of technologies coming from other places than China, without neglecting anything regarding China, but in order to spread risks and to divide risks, it's quite important for companies now to have this kind of technologies that are coming from different places, to make sure that if there is some kind of issue, problem, wherever geographically, they are able to still getting products and supplies coming from other places from the world. So this is something fantastic that we have been working together with Harun, and we are getting also many other companies coming to us and asking us to help them to come to other markets. So this is something that absolutely presents an opportunity to other places, as of course Pakistan in particular, if we're talking about this.
Oh, thank you so much, Gaby, for your insights. And Adeel, I have another question with you, that COVID-19 has opened a new opportunity for digitizing of the underdeveloped countries like South Asia, Pakistan. So can you please tell me officially or unofficially about the Google's role for the undeveloped countries?
So Google has a core values of, and I'm speaking from a personal perspective, Google has core values of designing for all users. So they don't think about whether this product is for Western user versus a South Asian users versus a East Asian users and so on. So take for example YouTube, or take for example Google Maps, or whatever it might be. It is being rolled across the entire planet, right? And it doesn't matter which location you are in. So to start off with, that's how I would say it. Now, in terms of looking at the COVID-19 situation, what exactly has been going on, I think it's all in public forum. You saw partnership between Apple and Google come to the fore in terms of them working with the geolocation and things like that to advise governments on social distancing. Then they had this whole, if you search for COVID-19, you would come on the Google main page, you would see accurate, most reliable information about the best practices and things like that to ensure that, you know, areas where the actual health information is not disseminating, how would one play a role there? And then there are other kind of things that are happening immediately in the short term. In the long term, Google does want to expand, right? And digitization is a key part of it. Now, I think, as I said before, this is an opportunity for us to sit back and just re-strategize about the evolution of the digital world and how and what that means. I think the as we have mentioned before, the opportunity or the positive thing over here is that this has leveled the field across the entire planet. Like nobody is now an Easterner or a Westerner or a South Asian. We're all here in the same situation, and we all need to come out of it in a similar way. So that, I think, is how I'm looking at it, and I'm quite hopeful that once we come out of this, it would be an amazing future, despite some short-term pain, as we have mentioned before.
Thank you so much, Adeel. We have just 7 to 8 minutes to close up the session. So, Jahanzeb sir, do you have any other question to be asked?
I have one comment really, rather than a question. And my comment is that I do foresee, that's my personal opinion again, I do foresee a lot of job cuts. People will lose jobs across the globe. And I think governments, the government side, as well as large corporate, I think they should now come out and support entrepreneurship, call it micro entrepreneurship, call it freelancing, SMEs. So I think they should come out and support, provide support to freelancers and SMEs so that they come up and they then in turn generate income for people, both stream of people. One, who are digitally aware or digitally educated, and two, also at the same time looking after those people who are at the edge, who are on the other side of the boundary, who are not very digitally savvy or aware or educated. And we need to make sure somehow that it's an inclusive journey rather than creating digital dictatorships. Because I do fear digital dictatorships coming on, and I do see accumulation of wealth going in few hands in the new era, in the post-COVID era. And that will create, again, the divide will increase of rich and poor, of have and have-nots. And that will create social unrest. That's where I see the biggest challenge for governments, as well as large corporates in the evolving in the new world. But I would like Gaby's and Adeel's comment on that.
I don't have anything that fully agree with what you say. So first of all, of course, there is a big control on how administrations control their networks. So so this absolutely will depend on the administrations and the country's policy in the way that they will manage the network, in the way that will manage the knowledge and the distribution of the knowledge and the education. This becomes to be also, as you said, a fantastic opportunity for governments to starting educate to this means that now becomes to be new to everyone, that they can be educated from that. And this is a mean of that. And this is a way that, for instance, we now start to see a lot, hundreds and thousands of online university courses and training to be educated on things. Yes. So people, if we are aware, if we can promote and make people to be curious, okay, to be and to start. And even if they have the bad luck to lose a job, if they lose the job, they have the opportunity of invest the time on training themselves, on educating themselves. Maybe they will acquire new abilities in order to get, let's say, summed and be it's not accepted the word, but to enter into the new cycle of the economy, which becomes to be more digital. So if we are able for doing that, will be excellent if, let's say, government allow that. And I think it's a fantastic opportunity to pass the word to Adeel, because he's in Google. Google is knowledge distribution and everything. So absolutely, there is a big role that, of course, the Googles and the Facebooks of the world can play.
I agree with you guys there. I remain slightly more optimistic than Jahanzeb, perhaps, in terms of, okay, yes, there will be some short-term losses in terms of jobs and pain and so on. But people who have been the haves not so far will now realize that any political theory or any kind of group they've been ascribing to now has failed them. Those groups have not been able to provide the health or the services or the education yet. And now I think there will be a greater demand and a greater ask for all of those services to be provided. Just a small example, there's a small group in the world who say vaccines don't work. Now all of the world is now looking for a vaccine. So how does that, like, all of those theories will have to be reevaluated and will be revised. And I remain hopeful and optimistic.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Adeel, my view is not on the optimism or the pessimism side. I think what I'm saying here, or suggesting here, is that there is a role that the governments and the big companies, big corporates, have to play now in enlarging the circle, in bringing in people who are on the other side of the edge or the board. So we have to come up with an inclusive policy so that people become more aware on the digital side of things.
I agree.
That's my point.
Thank you so much. Our session is going to be end. So Gaby, thank you so much for your valuable time and valuable insights. And Adeel also, thank you so much for your valuable time and insights. And also Jahanzeb sir. So can you...
Thank you, everyone. It's been a pleasure.
Big pleasure.
Thank you, Adeel. Thank you, Gaby.
Big pleasure to meet guys with you.
Thank you for your time. Pleasure.
Everyone. Was a very enjoyable conversation.
Do you have a few words for the digital?
I don't hear your question.
Bethak, so you get it. Can you say a few words digital Bethak?
Yeah, thank you for organizing. It's good to meet you all and kind of have an informal discussion around these topics, and hopefully the